Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get straight to the core insights. And today, we're really plunging into a report that, well, it brings a very complex and frankly quite alarming side of border security into sharp focus. Okay, so let's try and unpack this a bit. We've got sources detailing a very specific kind of arrest.
Yeah.
Happened recently, Southern California. And it immediately raises some pretty big questions, I think, about the ongoing challenges there at the border. What's our sort of mission today in terms of pulling out the key nuggets from this material?
Right. Well, the mission, I think, is to go beyond just the surface facts of this one incident. We want to understand what this specific arrest really reveals about current border security efforts,
Yeah.
and the challenges authorities face, and maybe even, the systemic things at play when we see patterns like the one described here.
And what really jumps out right away from this source is something quite, well, surprising perhaps, is this recent arrest in Southern California, Border Patrol agents. The report clearly states this person, he'd been deported before, and what's more, identified as a convicted sex offender. So, okay, let's really get into the specifics. How did this actually unfold according to the source? Where were the agents?
Yeah, the scene described, it's pretty vivid, actually. Agents were out patrolling an incredibly isolated area, it says, near Mount Signal, which
Oh,
is,
my God.
right near the Mexican border. And what caught their eye was a man actively running from the border itself.
Running from the border, okay? And their response once they saw him.
And swift, decisive, according to a report. They moved in, arrested him right there, and then standard procedure took him to the El Centro station for processing. And here's where it gets, well, critical to understanding the depth of this case, the processing, what it revealed about him. So the person arrested identified as a 42-year-old man, Mexican national, and as it turned out, their systems confirmed it. He had indeed been previously deported from the U.S.
Okay, so deported before, that's clear. But the report goes further, right, into his criminal history. Can you walk us through that and how it connects to that prior deportation?
Absolutely. So, digging a bit deeper into his past, the records showed, a significant and pretty disturbing criminal history. He'd been convicted before in California. The charge was lewdness acts with a minor under 16. For that, a very serious crime. He got 20 months in prison. And the source states he was deported immediately after release from jail, which, sounds like standard procedure for someone with that kind of conviction.
Right. So given that history and the, specific reason for his deportation, what does this latest arrest mean, legally speaking? Are there particular challenges or maybe precedents when prosecuting reentry cases like this, especially with such a serious background?
Yeah, that's an important point. What are the legal ramifications now? The material we looked at indicates he'll now face prosecution by the Department of Justice. And the specific charge is re-entry after removal as a convicted sex offender. That charge carries significant legal weight precisely because of the prior conviction and the deportation order. And, this specific case, while it's about one individual, it really sharpens the focus on a broader pattern the sources highlight. This isn't some isolated incident, not at all. In fact, this man is the fifth previously deported sex offender caught crossing illegally just since the current fiscal year began.
Fifth. Wow. Just take that in for a second. Five previously deported sex offenders caught trying to cross illegally just as this fiscal year started. That repetition is, it's striking. Does the source give any clue why this particular group, previously deported sex offenders, seems to be such a recurring issue? Is it resources, maybe legal loopholes, or something else? What makes them keep trying?
That's a really crucial question. The source, it doesn't really dive into the specific systemic reasons why they might be so persistent, but it strongly implies that the sheer number, highlights a significant vulnerability or challenge. And to put an even finer point on it, in just the last 4 months, specifically, 4 other sex offenders, also previously deported, were caught crossing illegally again. What makes this stat stand out, I think, is the specific threat these individuals could pose. It raises immediate questions about the kind of vigilance the resources needed to intercept them specifically.
And the report itself, it frames this particular arrest quite strongly. It calls it vigilant work of our agents in the El Centro sector. It highlights that it led to the successful removal of a sexual predator. What does that kind of phrasing tell you about that perspective in the source?
Well, it clearly signals a message of, dedication and successful enforcement action. There's a quote in there from Assistant Chief Patrol Agent David S. Kim. He says, we're sending a clear message to those who have committed serious crimes in the United States and are seeking to illegally enter that we will vigorously pursue criminal prosecution. So it's not just about the catch itself, it's about deterrence. sending a message. And emphasizing the vigilant work suggests maybe these interceptions aren't easy, they require real effort, maybe good intelligence, though the report doesn't detail the how on that front.
Right. And the source wraps up by concluding, based on these incidents, that they show just how important border security really is.
Hmm.
That's definitely a strong concluding thought from the material. From your read, is there anything in the report that gives insight into what specifically highlights that importance beyond, the obvious capture of someone dangerous? Does it point to, say, resource gaps or maybe a success in intelligence sharing, perhaps?
Hmm. Well, the report doesn't really offer that deep dive into, say, resources or intelligence methods specifically. The repeated nature of these incidents, especially involving people with these very serious criminal histories, it does underscore a pretty fundamental aspect of border security, doesn't it? It suggests this constant, ongoing need for vigilance, not just against illegal entry generally, but specifically against this high-risk group who could pose a direct public safety threat. So the importance the source highlights, it seems tied to that protective function of these border operations.
Okay, so just to kind of summarize the main takeaway from this deep dive then, our sources really put a spotlight on this recurring challenge at the border, specifically the re-entry of people deported previously, often with serious criminal records, and also the ongoing efforts by law enforcement to intercept them. It's like a snapshot of a persistent, pretty complex issue.
Yeah, and what really sticks out for me, and hopefully for you listening, are those specifics, like the repetition, 5 such cases already this fiscal year.
Yeah.
It really hammers home that this isn't just a one-off, an anomaly. It seems to be a persistent pattern that authorities are actively trying to deal with.
So this brings it to a final thought, maybe a question for you to consider. When we look at reports like this one, what does it make you think about the multifaceted challenges, the realities of border enforcement, and also the judicial process for those who've been previously deported for serious crimes and then attempt to reenter? What comes to mind for you?